Mama says we need an heir. Give me back my daughter, my ex-husband shouted. Not only me but all the other customers in the store turned to look at him. To think that a grown man would shout "Mama" like that. No matter what he says, I have no intention of letting my daughter meet him. And while I had decided never to see my ex-husband again, I'm a single mother with an 18-year-old daughter. She's my precious child from my marriage to my ex-husband. When she was born, we felt truly happy. However, my mother-in-law started harassing me, and my husband never stood up for me. What's more, my ex-husband dumped all the childcare responsibilities on me and was having an affair. I'd had enough of such a husband, and when our daughter was just 5 years old, I decided to divorce him. The time right after the divorce was incredibly difficult. Although I demanded compensation from my ex-husband and his mistress for the affair, they never paid a penny, and we were always scraping by. I had to make my young daughter endure so much. Perhaps sensing my anxiety, she never acted spoiled. She grew up to be such a kind, good child. Now, this wonderful daughter of mine has been accepted into a prestigious university. In the roughly 13 years since divorcing my ex-husband, we've been through so much, but watching my daughter grow up close by has filled me with deep emotion. While I was terribly anxious at the time of the divorce, looking back now, I have nothing but happy memories. My daughter and I were overflowing with love for each other. Then one day, I got a phone call from my ex-husband. Although I had kept his contact information in case of emergencies, he had been completely unreachable, never responding to any communications about compensation or child support payments. This was the first time he had called since our divorce. While wondering what he could want after all this time, I answered the phone. His manner of speaking was casual, showing no signs of remorse for the past. Though exasperated by his attitude, I asked him what he wanted, hoping to get it over with quickly. "Well, you see, I'd like to meet our daughter," he replied. My mind went blank for a moment. But I quickly came to my senses and snapped, "Listen here, you haven't paid a cent in child support for 13 years, and now this? Are you serious?" He responded, "I'm sorry about that. But there's something I really need to talk to her about." Though he apologized with his words, I couldn't sense any real remorse. I firmly told him, "I don't want her to meet you," but he kept persisting over the phone. "Please, just one meeting is all I'm asking for. I'm her father, so I have the right to see her," he pleaded. I replied, "Fine. But first, I'll meet with you alone. After that, I'll decide whether it's appropriate for you to meet her." He agreed to this. After our divorce, my ex-husband had married the woman he had the affair with. She was much younger than me. A few days later, I met with my ex-husband. Unable to tolerate his complete disregard for the past, I got straight to the point as soon as we met. "What's your real intention after all this time? You have some nerve wanting to meet our daughter now, after never paying a cent in compensation or child support." 2 years after our divorce, a son was born to my ex-husband and his new wife. I learned about this from my former mother-in-law at the time. "Unlike you, she's an excellent wife," she had said. "She's completely different from a useless woman like you who could only bear a girl." It was exactly what I'd expect from a mother-in-law who had been nasty to me since the beginning of my marriage. "I heard about it when your mother deliberately contacted me back then." "A boy, wasn't it?" I said. My ex-husband replied with a disappointed look. So you heard from mother." But actually, that child wasn't mine. Turns out she was seeing someone else besides me. The kid ended up being another man's child, he continued. Oh, is that so? That must have been disappointing, I said. I nearly blurted out "it serves you right," but instead said casually, "But hey, your mother must still be happy, since it's a boy," to which he weakly replied, "No. Mother is furious, actually." Having suffered so much at the hands of my former mother-in-law and ex-husband, I nearly started crying as the memories came flooding back. My former mother-in-law absolutely loved tormenting her daughter-in-law, and my ex-husband never tried to stop her. Even after I gave birth to our daughter, she continued making disrespectful comments without hesitation. She would say things like how disappointed she was that it was a girl, what we were going to do about an heir, and even questioned whether the baby was really her son's child. When I told my husband about this, he would brush it off, saying, "Mother doesn't mean any harm. It's just family joking around, learn to laugh it off." Even when his affair was discovered, he showed no remorse. "So you found out, huh? Actually, I've got someone I like, she's much younger and better than you. Besides, Mother's been telling me to divorce the wife who can only bear girls and remarry a younger woman," he had said matter-of-factly. Talking to my ex-husband after so long brought back all these memories. It only strengthened my resolve not to let him meet our daughter. Yet he persisted, saying, "So you see, since my affair partner's child wasn't mine either, I need an heir. That's why I want to meet our daughter." He showed no signs of having learned his lesson. I felt my anger rising. "You must be joking. After doing whatever you pleased, now you want to make our daughter your heir." My anger at my ex-husband made me raise my voice unintentionally. "If you need an heir so badly, why don't you find another woman and have a child with her?" Then my ex-husband mumbled, "I got sick a few years ago. I can't have children anymore. That's why I need our daughter." "I don't care. Our daughter probably doesn't want to see you anyway, so give up on this heir business," I said as I started to get up, but my ex-husband grabbed my arm with surprising force. "Mama says we need an heir. Give me back my daughter." His outburst made not only me but all the other customers in the store turn to look. A grown man shouting "Mama" like that. My ex-husband, seeming to come to his senses, said firmly, "Just ask our daughter how she feels about it. If she says she's willing to meet, you'll let her, right?" Before leaving the store. "No matter what anyone says, I have no intention of letting him meet our daughter." I thought I'd never see my ex-husband again. When I got home and casually mentioned what had happened to my daughter, she gave an unexpected response, "Oh, I wouldn't mind meeting Dad." "What? Are you kidding?" When I hastily asked for confirmation, she smiled and said, "No, I'm serious. If I'm meeting Dad, that means Grandma will be there too, right? That makes me want to meet them even more." Despite my attempts to convince her otherwise, my daughter's feelings didn't change. A week later, I reluctantly took my daughter to visit my former in-laws' house for the first time in 13 years. While the exterior looked the same, the interior was quite run down. As soon as she saw me, my former mother-in-law spat out, "Why did you have to come too? My granddaughter alone would have been fine." Containing my anger, I calmly replied, "I'm here as my daughter's guardian." Once inside, my former mother-in-law immediately turned to my daughter with an unnaturally sweet smile, saying, "It's been so long. I hear you've been accepted into a top university?" My daughter responded cheerfully to such a mother-in-law, "Yes, I'm planning to study law as I aim to become a lawyer." Seemingly encouraged by my daughter's polite manner, my former mother-in-law said, A lawyer. That's just what I'd expect from someone with our bloodline. I knew you were talented, but you're really something special." Say, won't you come live with us and be our heir? At that moment, I couldn't contain myself any longer and burst out, don't be ridiculous. What are you saying after all this time? Wait, Mom. Let me handle this, my daughter stopped me. Taking a deep breath, my daughter began speaking in a calm tone, I don't know what misconception you're under, but I didn't come here today to become anyone's heir. My former mother-in-law's eyes widened as if to say, what do you mean? My ex-husband also looked genuinely surprised. Why would I ever return to people who caused my mother so much pain? I came here today to demand payment for 13 years of unpaid child support and compensation for the affair, my daughter declared. 13 years worth, my ex-husband gaped, probably calculating the enormous sum in his head. My mother-in-law looked surprised for a moment but quickly recovered, saying defiantly, what are you saying? We're not paying anything like that. But my daughter continued, are you sure about that? If you're planning to default on these payments, I'll seek a recommendation from the family court. If you still refuse to pay, we'll garnish your savings and wages. Feel free to choose that path if you prefer. I couldn't help but admire my own daughter. She had completely taken control of the situation, leaving both my former mother-in-law and ex-husband speechless. Standing before them, my daughter smiled sweetly and added, remember what I said? I want to become a lawyer. That final blow from my daughter left my former mother-in-law and ex-husband looking completely deflated, like empty shells. Mom, let's go home. We're done here, my daughter smiled as if nothing had happened. Looking at her, I thought to myself, even I as her mother couldn't have handled it better. My shouting would never have had the impact that my daughter's words did on those two. Just as my daughter said, we later hired a lawyer and demanded payment for child support and compensation. My former mother-in-law and ex-husband transferred the full amount in one lump sum. Judging by their behavior, they didn't seem to have much financial flexibility. I'm sure they had to take out loans to make the payment, which means they'll probably have to work themselves to the bone from now on. I believe it was my daughter's mention of family court and wage garnishment that convinced them to give up and pay. Thank you, this is all thanks to you. I'm so sorry for all the hardships I put you through, I expressed my gratitude and apologies to my daughter. She responded in a slightly angry tone, oh, stop it, that's ancient history. I am who I am today because of you, Mom. No more overtime work, okay? Take better care of yourself. Her words brought tears to my eyes. She really has grown up to be such a wonderful person. Later, I received an absurd message from my ex-husband saying, I've paid everything, so let's start over. I couldn't be bothered to reply, so I took this opportunity to block all contact with him. Looking at my ex-husband, I realized there are some pitiful people who, despite being adults, never change even after years have passed. In contrast, my daughter continues to grow into an increasingly wonderful person. Watching her up close, I feel deeply grateful that I gave birth to this child.